animal now extinct, and you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past, and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses, and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness.
Welcome to World of Africa on WION World is One. My name is Erik Njoka. This week we highlight the biggest Indian Ocean island nation of Madagascar, where voters head to the polls for the first round of a tense presidential election after weeks of opposition protests demanding a fair and equitable vote. This year seems no exception, as the vote comes amid a deep political crisis that has played out in the courts and also on the streets. Kenya's government announced an unexpected public holiday for a nationwide tree planting day. It was part of the African nation's ambitious plan to plant 15 billion trees by 2032. Kenya's current forest cover stands at about 7%, but the government has set aside more than $80 million this financial year as it bids to increase tree cover to more than 10%. The United Nations has described floods that uprooted hundreds of thousands of people in Somalia and neighboring countries in East Africa following a historic drought as a once-in-a-century event. Around 1.6 million people in Somalia could be affected by the heavy seasonal downpours, which have been worsened by the combined impact of two climate phenomena, El Niño and the Indian Ocean dipole. And the education system in South Africa is failing its poorest children, according to parents, teachers and the youngsters themselves. Many are forced to spend hours walking to and from school each day, often in dangerous conditions. It's claimed they are exhausted and they cannot fulfill their academic potential. We begin in Sudan, where approximately 800 people were reportedly killed in West Darfur after clashes between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary force called the Rapid Support Forces in El Janina on November 4th and 5th. And this is according to the International Organization for Migration. It reported that 100 were injured and 300 others are missing. The situation remains grim. Here's a report.
Thousands of Sudanese nationals made a perilous journey across the desert on foot in their quest to flee the violence in their country. Many of them are from West Darfur, which borders Chad. The internally displaced persons claim that there is a new surge in ethnically driven killings in the region as the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces took over the main army base in the state capital, El Janina. Women were seen weeping as they received the news that their family members were killed in the violence back home.
Our people there in Ardmata were killed and displaced. Children are slaughtered, women's money and belongings are robbed, and they can't escape.
They told me that my brother was killed and we do not know where he is. I, my mother and my sister's children came to Chad. We don't know where my father is. We couldn't find him. They burned everything and took everything. We did not bring anything with us, only God and our clothes.
News and aid agencies had previously reported that between April and June this year, the RSF and allied Arab militias conducted weeks of systematic attacks. The Masalit, Janina's major ethnic African tribe, was allegedly targeted as war raged between the RSF and Sudan's army. The West Darfur state in western Sudan has been witnessing violent clashes, with hundreds of people reportedly killed and serious human rights violations committed. The International Organization for Migration says that nearly 700 were reportedly killed, 100 injured, and 300 others went missing. In West Darfur state, in clashes between the Sudanese armed forces and paramilitary rapid support forces in El Geneina on November 4th and 5th. The UN agency added that the clashes have forced the displacement of 3,000 people from Geneina to neighboring villages, with another 1,000 fleeing into neighboring Chad due to the tense and unpredictable situation.
We hope that at some point there will be accountability. But just to say that particularly the crimes against women, particularly the indiscriminate killings, of course we've heard of crimes against the Massacre in Darfur. All these are egregious violations of human rights, and it must stop.
The RSF, originating from the former Janjaweed militias, were implicated in ethnically motivated genocide in Darfur between 2003 to 2008. It has bolstered its presence in the western region of Sudan after gaining ground in recent months. The conflict between Sudanese army and RSF forces began on April 15th after a process to integrate the former militia into the regular forces failed. Recently, the RSF announced its control of most prominent Sudanese army bases, especially in South and West Darfur states.
I will continue to call for all the parties to Sudan's conflict to abide by their obligations under international human rights and humanitarian law. This is not optional. These attacks should cease and those responsible held accountable.
Deadly clashes have been going on between the SAF and the RSF in Khartoum and other areas since April 15th. At least 9,000 have died and over 5.8 million have been displaced within and outside Sudan. Around 25 million are in need of aid, according to the latest UN report. More than 500,000 people have crossed into the Chad, mostly from West Darfur. Chad border guards say the daily number of those fleeing from West Darfur surged to over 3,000. UN officials in Chad says thousands more were expected to cross, but were prevented from doing so by RSF forces demanding money. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The Kenyan government now says that its police officers will not be deployed to Haiti until all conditions on training and funding are met, in line with last month's approval from the United Nations Security Council to give the Eastern African country command of a multinational mission to combat violent gangs in the troubled Caribbean country. Meanwhile, Haiti is reporting a fresh round of gang-related killings and kidnappings as it waits for help.
The mission by Kenya to lend a helping hand to the Haitian police force is facing headwinds even before it sets off. Even after the UN Security Council gave its approval for Kenya to command a multinational mission to combat violent gangs in the troubled Caribbean country, there have been setbacks. From a politician moving to court to bar the deployment, to the country's interior minister being questioned by parliament and the long wait for parliament to give its green light for the process to begin. Now, there is a new problem. Kenya's government has said it won't deploy its police officers to Haiti until all conditions on training and funding are met. Kenya's Interior Minister tweeted that the deployment of National Police Service officers to Haiti will neither compromise nor undermine the capacity and the capability of the service to fulfill its mandate to secure citizens and their property.
The biggest problem right now in Haiti is the absence of government and rule of law, and also all key state institutions have collapsed, even the police. How will the Kenyan foreign force be able to operate in Haiti if we don't have a functional government?
Meanwhile, Haiti is reporting a fresh round of gang-related killings and kidnappings as it awaits help. Haiti's Superior Court of Auditors and Administrative Dispute said 5 of its employees were kidnapped in the capital, Port-au-Prince, forcing the agency to temporarily postpone all hearings. Also, the UN's International Organization for Migration said that nearly 2,500 people in the coastal town of Mariani, located west of the capital, were displaced by violence as gangs infiltrate previously peaceful communities.
The crisis, as we've just heard, in Haiti is growing more complicated by the day. Half the population needs humanitarian assistance, including nearly 3 million children. But half of those in need of assistance aren't getting it, in large part because of insecurity and insufficient humanitarian funding. Basic services are on the verge of collapse, and in some communities, life is more dangerous now than it has ever been.
Nearly 200,000 Haitians have now lost their homes to gangs who pillage neighborhoods operated by rivals in their quest to control more territory. Many of the displaced are now sleeping outside or in makeshift settlements that are crowded and extremely unsanitary.
Re-establishing control by the Haitian National Police is a prerequisite for holding credible and inclusive elections. The deployment of the MSS brings hope that the situation will improve. The Haitian National Police can only achieve lasting results when public security is restored and the state resumes its functions, especially in disadvantaged neighbors prone to gang activity.
According to the UN, over 1,200 killings and 701 abductions were reported across Haiti from July 1st to September 30th, more than double the figure reported during the same period last year. Gangs continue to overwhelm Haiti's national police, which remains understaffed and underfunded despite the international community supplying training and resources. In late October, 2 more police officers were killed, and according to a police union, a total of 32 officers were killed so far this year. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry first requested the immediate deployment of foreign armed forces more than a year ago. But it wasn't until early October that the UN Security Council voted to send a non-UN multinational force to Haiti that would be funded by voluntary contributions. Most of the Haitians believe that the help from Kenya is not that necessary and have remained pessimistic about the plan. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa recently deployed over 3,000 soldiers on the ground to fight the country's growing scourge, illegal mining. For years, the country has been battling with this problem, and the authorities seem confident that they will leave no stone unturned. Our reporter Kalden Ongmu has filed this report.
Illegal mining in South Africa has been a continuing threat for decades, with poverty, unemployment, and crime driving the underground industry. Illegal mining is not just hurting the country's economy, but it has become a major cause of concern in the community surrounding the mines. The traumatized residents across the country have sought for immediate government help.
Members of the SNDF will, in cooperation with the South African Police Service, conduct an intensified anti-criminality operation against illegal mining across all provinces from the 28th of October 2023 until the 28th of April 2024.
Thousands have been arrested for illegal mining since May. Of the 4,000 held, over 2,700 are foreign nationals. This, according to the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Thandi Modise. She says dealing with illegal miners will be the government's priority.
I don't think it is our job as ministers to protect the images of other countries when ours is going to the tatters because other people's are coming in and disregarding, disrespecting our laws and our dignities within our own borders.
Mineral Resources and Energy Minister told lawmakers last year that illegal mining cost the economy about $2.6 billion in 2019 and caused mining companies to spend collectively about 2 billion rand annually on extra security. The task team appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa to deal with illegal mining in the country says they will leave no stone unturned. Modise says they will have a zero-tolerance approach to those who undermine the laws of this country, and the army is there to support the police.
The police have got this. We go in support of the police. They are proving over and over South Africa that they are capable of defending, of taking their stance, of dealing with criminals on the ground. But we also are aware, in a particular neighboring country, we know that the people who were wreaking havoc, not only in the Gauteng mines, but in the Northwest mines, come from our neighbors and are trained soldiers.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says it's going to cost the country about nearly R500,000 rand to fight illegal mining. And even though previously there has been a debate about the high expenditure, most of the experts this time around has said this is needed. The deployment of over 3,000 soldiers to fight illegal mining is a major step up and the best option South Africa has. This is Kalden Omu from Johannesburg, South Africa for WION World is One.
There's a lot at stake in Madagascar. The incumbent president, Andry Rajoelina, is facing a turbulent path to re-election as protests and legal challenges rock the political landscape. Rajoelina, who has held a firm grip on power for years, is determined to continue his tenure despite a history of ups and downs. He remains resolute in his quest for re-election. Here's a report.
These scenes have become common in the Indian Ocean island nation of Madagascar. Another demonstration by the Malagasy opposition in the capital Antananarivo was dispersed by the police. Tear gas was used and 11 people were questioned days before the first round of the presidential election. 100 demonstrators, most of them youngsters, converged in the center of the city at the call of a 10 opposition candidate collective to protest against the electoral process deemed biased in favor of President Andry Rajoelina.
I'm fighting for the descendants against an incompetent government. That's why I'm fighting, so that the law is respected in Madagascar. Everyone is subject to the law. No one is above the law. No one is above the law.
The change that they are fighting for has been a rallying call for years in the country. Madagascar has, over the past couple of decades, struggled to consolidate its democracy. The so-called 2009 coup d'etat, in which the military transferred power to Andry Rajoelina, reverted governance to an outright autocracy. Madagascar eventually returned to electoral politics in 2013 and is now considered a partly free country or hybrid regime. 13 candidates are in the race, including President Rajoelina. Rajoelina has held this office twice as the president of the High Transitional Authority of Madagascar from 2009 to 2014 and president from 2019 to 2023. He resigned in September as the constitution requires that the incumbent president transfer power to the president of the Senate if they run for re-election.
Everyone has a mission on earth, and mine is really to fight poverty in Madagascar, to lift up the Malagasy people. Now the challenges are enormous, so there are still a lot of things to be done, including job creation, integrating young people and everything to do with social safety nets, all of which are challenges I'll have to tackle in the coming years.
The election was off to a rocky start. 10 opposition candidates who call themselves the Collective da Candidata, or group or coalition of the candidates, have been protesting against the elections organization. They are demanding the disqualification of Rajoelina as a candidate due to his acquisition of French citizenship in 2014. Only Malagasy citizens can run for office, and according to Article 42 of the 1960 Law on Citizenship, an adult loses Malagasy citizenship if they voluntarily acquire a foreign citizenship. The Collective de Candidats started mass street protests on the 2nd of October. They've generally been peaceful, but the authorities have used all means, including violence, to suppress them. The coalition aims to continue these protests until its demands are met, but it doesn't look like they will be. For one, forcing Rajoelina to take part in a negotiation that would result in his own disqualification as a candidate is not likely to happen. Secondly, it's unlikely that the current government, Electoral Commission and Constitutional Court will enter into negotiations regarding their reshuffle or dissolution. The head of Madagascar's lower house of parliament has called for the suspension of presidential elections after weeks of regular opposition rallies.
The electoral process must comply with international standards. This is not the case at the moment with the election that we're trying to organize on November 16th. We're strongly calling for the electoral process to be suspended.
Madagascar's outgoing president Andry Rajoelina expressed little doubt about his victory. He held his last rally in the Malagasy capital ahead of the elections, where thousands gathered. Rajoelina said he spent the last 5 years doing everything to boost Madagascar's lagging development. Ahead of the polls, Rajoelina has made the provision of electricity a campaign pledge, as only 30% of the island's households are currently connected. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The Fashion Week season in South Africa came to a close as fashion lovers gathered at the Forum Campus in Bryanston for the African Fashion International Joburg Fashion Week Spring and Summer 2023-2024 collections. But the highlight of the event was a fashion designer from Niger whose main objective was to spread peace on the runway. Find out who she is in this next report.
It was all glitz and glamour at the Joburg Fashion Week, a celebration of Pan-African couture featuring designers and fashion creatives from across the continent. Taking center stage this year was Niger fashion designer Alia Barre, with a collection she hopes will spread a positive image of her troubled home. Barre, who has lived in Senegal and India, showcased an elegant collection drawing inspiration from her experiences living in different countries. Barre said Niger has long been associated with political instability, an image that she believes does not fully represent the beauty of her country.
In terms of my culture, my background, because I'm from Niger and I'm from different ethnic group, and I lived in different countries, different continents, in India, in Africa and all, and I wanted to show that in that collection, like different aspects that could seem different, but if we put them all together, it can make sense. And that's nowadays, this is the most important things. We are a melting pot, we are a different blend of things, and this is what makes us unique and what we should embrace totally.
Niger has been in political doldrums ever since the Mohamed Bazoum's government was toppled in a coup in July this year. Since then, various artists and influencers have emerged from the country in support of the junta taking the reins of power. Some have spread the word internationally that despite turmoil, there are some positives. Barre's collection called DNA is a blend of influences from around the world, including symbols from Niger and design by a South African graphic designer.
When people talk about Niger, they always talk about conflicts, they talk about poverty, they talk about death, about negative things. So I know most of the people associate fashion with like superficiality, but I think that fashion through culture help to give like a good message, like to give to people outside an image of the country that is positive, because I'm trying to give like to share the love that I have for my country, and I hope it's working. And I think that the people from Niger feel it the same way. I hope so.
Barre's collection represents her multicultural background and aims to celebrate the diversity of Niger. She believes that embracing the unique blend of cultures is what makes her country special and wants to convey this message through her fashion collection. Africa Fashion International, which hosts the fashion event, said that Joburg Fashion Week aims to create a platform for African creatives to flourish. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Thank you very much for watching this week's episode of Wild of Africa. Get in touch with us on all our social media platforms and share your feedback about the show there. My name is Erik Njoka. Keep watching WION.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל,